Hey friends, what's up? Derek here from Bomb Socks, back with another week of Bomb Bites, where we feast upon the words of Christ, one bite at a time. So this week we're getting into the Come Follow Me with Acts chapter 10 through 15, which is a cool part of the New Testament, a lot of new things taking place, and some of which need some context. So let me start you off kind of where we started a couple weeks ago with the book of Acts, when I gave you what I called the thesis statement of the book of Acts. Again, this is not just the Acts of the Apostles, this is the Acts of the resurrected Christ through the Holy Ghost and through the lives and ministries of his ordained apostles. Now, Acts chapter 1, verse number 8, you heard me talk about this already. You saw that in the first 7 chapters of Acts, you saw the works of the Lord, the resurrected Lord, through the lives and ministries of his ordained apostles in Jerusalem and in Judea in those first 7 chapters. Chapters 8 and 9 is where you start seeing the gospel spread out a little bit to Samaria. And then chapters 10 through 28, this is where you've got going to all the ends of the earth, the uttermost parts of the earth. Now, one important thing, and this is context that we do need to understand. The Lord has always had a people, whether it's in Old Testament or New Testament, even sometimes in our time, where they have not been ready to receive the gospel for one reason or another. We've seen that happen. And today, our minds don't like that. And we try to make up reasons on why this would happen. But there's always been a people who have not been ready to hear the gospel. And so at this point, this is where all of a sudden the gospel is going to go out to the Gentiles. And for one reason or another, in fact, we'll talk about it in a second here, they were not ready for that. And maybe that was the Christians that were not ready to share it with them or whatever it was. But God has had a time where there have been people who have not been ready to receive the gospel. Well, in Acts chapter 10, this is where the gospel is starting to go out to all the uttermost parts of the earth. You got this guy right here, and I love this guy. His name is Cornelius the centurion. In fact, I love verse number 1. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of the band called the Italian band. He's a devout man, and one that feared God with all his house, which gave much alms to the people and prayed to God always. Again, here is a man who has been doing the good things. And there's been stories of people just like this throughout history, doing the good things, waiting for the gospel to be given to them. Verse 3, he saw in a vision, evidently or clearly or distinctly, about the 9th hour of the day, an angel of God coming into him and saying, Cornelius. When he looked on him, he was afraid. That happens with angels, and said, What is it, Lord? And he said unto him, Thy prayers and thy alms are come up for a memorial before God. Now send men to Joppa, call for one Simon, whose name is Peter. And down in verse 6, he shall tell thee what thou oughtest to do. And so then Cornelius sends for soldiers to go over and find Peter. Now in the meantime, verse number 9, on the morrow, as they went on their journey and drew nigh into the city, Peter went up to the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. Here's a little plug for morning prayer. He became very hungry and would have eaten, but while they made ready, he fell into a trance, or he had a vision, saw heaven opened. This is kind of a crazy vision, and a certain vessel descending unto him, as it had been a great sheet, knit or bound at the 4 corners and let down to the earth, wherein were all manner of 4-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. Now these are things that were not according to the law of Moses, which they had been keeping. There came a voice unto him, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. And Peter said, Not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean. This is not what I have been supposed to do. And the Lord is like, okay, but we're changing things. The voice spake unto him again a second time, What God hath cleansed, that call not thou common. This was done thrice, and the vessel was received up again into heaven. Now, while Peter doubted in himself what this vision which he had seen should mean, behold, the men which were sent from Cornelius had made inquiry for Simon's house and stood before the gate. Now, down to verse number 19. While Peter thought on the vision, the Spirit said unto him, Behold, 3 men seek thee. Arise therefore, get thee down, go with them, doubting nothing, for I have sent them. So Cornelius's men meet with Peter, and then Peter goes back to Cornelius, and I love their interaction. This is so cool. As Peter was coming in, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and worshiped him. Cornelius is a good man. Just a guy who's been doing his best with the light knowledge he has, trying to serve God. Peter took him up saying, Stand up, I myself also am a man. Peter's like, don't worship me. This is God here we're focusing on. Now, Peter down in verse 28, again, this is the context of what's been going on here. He said unto them, Ye know how that is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come unto one of another nation. But God hath shewed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. And then verse 29, therefore came I unto you without gainsaying, as soon as I was sent for. I ask therefore, for what intent ye have sent for me? Cornelius said, 4 days ago I was fasting until this hour, and at the 9th hour I prayed in my house. Behold, a man or an angel stood before me in bright clothing, said, Cornelius, thy prayer is heard, thy alms are had in remembrance in the sight of God. And then I love this, verse 33, immediately therefore I sent to thee, thou hast well done that thou art come. Now therefore are we all here present before God to hear all things that are commanded thee of God. And Peter opened his mouth and said, of a truth I perceive that God is no respecter of persons, but in every nation he that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him. The word which God sent unto the children of Israel, preaching peace by Jesus Christ, he is Lord of all. And I love that there's a little smiley face emoji right at the end of that. Now, let me back out for a second right here. This is where you start seeing that gospel, like I said, spread to all nations. This is something that had not been done yet, and this was new to everybody. But I love how you've got these faithful, devout men that are just trying to do their best with all the light and knowledge they have. So I love in the Come Follow Me, one of the things it says is, for generations, the Jews had believed that being of the seed of Abraham, or a literal descendant of Abraham, meant that a person was accepted and chosen by God. That's kind of what the Old Testament was all about. They considered anyone else an unclean Gentile who was not accepted by God. In Acts chapter 10, what did the Lord teach Peter about who is accepted with him? What evidence do you find in this chapter that Cornelius' life was acceptable to the Lord? Ponder what is meant by the statement, God is no respecter of persons. Why is it important to you to know this truth? Like the Jews who look down on those who are not of the seed of Abraham, do you ever catch yourself making unkind or uninformed assumptions about someone who is different from you? Yeah, our world never does that, right? How can you overcome this tendency? It might be interesting to try a simple activity for the next few days, and I love this idea. Whenever you interact with someone, try to think to yourself, this person is a child of God. As you do this, what changes do you notice in the way you think about and interact with others? What a great little message for you and I just to start off this week as you see the gospel starting to go to people where they were not used to the gospel going here. And Peter had to take a minute to think about this, but as he did this, he recognized how God is no respecter of persons. And this is where the gospel is now the time to start going out to all the world. And it sets up a great precedent for the rest of the New Testament. I love this chapter. I love the context of it, and I love the content. And I know that what is taught is true, and I appreciate the relevance and the comparison that we have to our day as well. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks as always for sharing these messages. Oh, we are so grateful that you do that. Please check out our amazingly comfortable gospel themed socks at bombsocks.com. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Godspeed. Bye-bye.